Welcome everyone to our panel discussion on climate resilience, the third out of 4 of our summer. So this panel is part of our Summer STEM Career Accelerator, and unlike our regular sessions, today's session is open to everyone. So for our panelists joining us and others joining us today, I'll do a very quick introduction of RePicture and our program, and then I'll introduce the panelists and turn it over to Jerry, our panel moderator, to lead the discussion. So a really quick overview. RePicture is a mission-driven public benefit organization. Our vision is a world where everyone can thrive in STEM. We want to see those fields that address critical challenges like climate change to look more like the people affected by those fields, like climate change, which is everyone. And we're building a new way for you to explore careers through the world of STEM all around you. So our panel is part of our flagship 6-week-long summer program. And in the program, we focus on 3 pillars: professional skills workshops, mentorship, and project portfolios. So professional skills, we cover critical skills like STEM writing and communication, working on teams, preparing and giving presentation, all the things you don't talk about in school or learn in school, but that are actually really important when you go and enter the workforce. And then for mentorship, we help our students connect with a wide range of STEM professionals and mentors through these career panels and through our guest speakers in our skills workshops and through interviews that our students do with STEM professionals about projects that they're working on, as well as one-on-one career coaching and mentorship. And throughout the program, students learn actively by researching and publishing articles about real-world STEM projects in their fields of interest. And through this, they create this really unique online portfolio of project research that can help them stand out and that showcases all those skills that we're practicing, as well as their talents and their passions and their interests. At the end of the day, RePicture is helping students meaningfully explore a field of interest and position themselves to enter and succeed in a field that they have no prior experience or network in. And finally, while our students are building their own portfolio of project research, they're helping others learn about STEM careers as well. So we've had well over 1,000 STEM projects uploaded to RePicture, and you can now go on our platform to see what kinds of actual projects you might work in the climate resilience field, for example. So our students are helping us build a new way to explore careers in fields like climate resilience. So today is one of 4 panels, like I just mentioned. This is our 3rd, and you can find all of our past panels on our YouTube channel on a wide range of topics, including human health, data and decision making we had last week, robotics, or rather the week before, robotics, semiconductors, green energy, and more. So even beyond today, and the students who are here with us now, today's panel is a great resource for students everywhere. And with that, I would like to welcome our climate resilience panelists today. So we have joining us today Arushi Parikh. She is an associate at TechFin Ventures, a venture capital group investing in early stage industrial technology companies. She is also a board member of Kenya Connect, a nonprofit organization set on empowering and engaging students and teachers in rural Kenya with 21st century skills. Her interests lie at the intersection of climate, global collaboration, and social entrepreneurship. As an engineer turned investor, she leverages her energy industry background to support budding deep technologies and teams that enable an equitable, sustainable energy and industrial transition. Arushi has a BS in chemical and biomolecular engineering with a minor in technology entrepreneurship from the University of Maryland, as well as from Nanyang Technology University, Singapore. Hopefully I said that right. So welcome, Arushi. And we also have with us today Bruce Riordan. He is the director of the Berkeley Climate Change Network, a collaboration of over 300 faculty and staff from a wide-ranging disciplines working together to advance climate change research and action at UC Berkeley and Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. He also leads the Berkeley Carbon Removal Network, a network of over 40 researchers that are creating engineered and natural solutions for carbon removal and storage. Previously, Bruce was the director of the Bay Area Climate Adaptation Network, a network of local governments and community-based organizations working on climate adaptation and resilience in the 9-county Bay Area. Bruce has a BA in liberal studies and educational media from SF State and is an alum of UC Davis as well. So please join me in welcoming Bruce and Arushi. And with that, I will turn it over to Jerry to lead our Q&A.
Awesome. Well, I'll start off with a first question for you both. So could you both tell us a story of how you got to where you are today? And that could range from early education, experience, first job, or anything that was an influence in the direction that you've taken. And Bruce, if you'd like to go first, you can.
Well, why don't we do alphabetical? Arushi, you're A and I'm B. So you want
Okay.
Sure, I'm happy to take a stab. Yeah, and also please call me Ashi. So Arushi is my full name, but I go by my nickname, which is Ashi. So nice to meet you guys, and also thank you for having me. I think on you said, yeah, brief intro to kind of career path. So as I mentioned, or as you saw from the bio, I went to the University of Maryland, where I studied chemical biomolecular engineering in my undergrad, and took a nice semester abroad in Singapore, which was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made. So if you haven't gone abroad and plan to, definitely do it. But I kind of started my studies there, and did a minor in tech entrepreneurship. So I always kind of had this exposure to the entrepreneurial space and startups, albeit from a very like fun living learning program type way at Maryland. And I then graduated and worked for about 5 years with ExxonMobil Research and Engineering Company between Philly and Houston. So kind of made my first sort of jump into industry, deep in the trenches of oil and gas. And then it's been almost close to 2 years now, did a bit of a career pivot. You know, we were talking about sort of non-linear paths here, but did a bit of a career pivot. And currently I work with a small climate and industrials focused venture capital fund. We're based here in New York, and invest across industrial segments. I'm happy to dive into that a little bit more later too, but yeah, that's me. Bruce, off to you.
Well, I definitely have a non-linear story here. I started in terms of school at UC Davis in the late 60s. I dropped out to run the campus radio station. So there are many ways to get from A to B to C here. When I went back to school, then later in the 70s, I was a better student, I think, then. I started in on sustainability with urban agriculture work, actually, this is back a ways now. But to jump ahead to climate, I've been in the climate world for 20 years now. And I can still remember the day I was reading the New York Times, and I think it was Timothy Egan, had a story about Alaska and climate impacts that were going on in a village in coastal Alaska. And it's one of those little frozen moments in your life when you, no bad pun intended there, I put the newspaper down, and I just had this intuition that this was going to be obviously a big thing. And this is when climate was not in the paper very often, but it was this day, and it hit me. And I'm happy to say I was right. My intuition was right that this climate change, or as we were saying, global warming at the time, was going to be such a big thing in our lives. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could start doing even some volunteer work in the field, and maybe I could get my paid consulting work, which was mostly in transportation at that point, if I could move some of that to climate. And I was in the right place at the right time, and all of my consulting work moved to climate within a year or two with the public agencies that I was working for. And I guess one other thing that was helpful, I was lucky in the, and this happens to all of us, hopefully at some point. I was lucky and I got mentored and inspired by a few key people at the beginning when I started on the climate work. Stephen Snyder, who was one of the greatest, sorry, he's gone now, at Stanford, professor and real leader nationally on climate, and had been for a while when I found him. And Al Gore, I got to go to Nashville and be in the training they did to teach people the slideshow and stuff. And just being around those people at the beginning was so helpful and so inspiring. So I'll leave it at that. There's more to say about a nonlinear track, but we'll get into it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you both for your answers. I will also co-sign and say, please go study abroad. It's so fun. Really, really fun. Another question we could go into a bit is, could you both also go into a bit more detail about what it is that you do now, whether that is like, what does your day-to-day look like, or how does the work that you do now impact or help people?
Shall I go first this time? We can flip back and
Sure.
forth. Okay, just for fun. So I run the Berkeley Climate Change Network. I've run it now for almost 2 years on the campus at Berkeley. It's about 300 faculty and staff who are working some 24/7 on climate, and some just it touches their research or their teaching some. We connect people across the campus, trying to break down silos on the campus for climate, because climate demands that much of the time. We help raise money or find money for research, which is, I'm happy to say, getting easier because there's more and more of it now from federal government and from state government and from philanthropy. They're discovering climate, and we try to build more bridges between the researchers, the academics, and those off-campus decision makers, community groups and all that need that science and need that information, and try and work to build those bridges so the science actually gets used and the science is informed by the experiences of people that are not scientists themselves. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you, Bruce. That's really fascinating. I was like trying to take some notes while you were talking, but I wasn't quick enough. Yeah, so a little bit about my day-to-day and what I do now. It's a little bit different than the engineering lens that I kind of had and that hat that I wore when I worked in industry. But, you know, today we are, so my firm Tech Fund Ventures, we're an early stage fund, deep tech focused. So we basically invest across Series A and B companies that are using science and technology, often with academic roots, to transform kind of our most critical industries. And for us, we really focus on the industries that are responsible for feeding, building, and supplying the world. Those are kind of our three like major buckets. And, you know, we also, we mainly look to decarbonize and introduce automation and digital solutions into these industries because they're obviously some of the most emissive industries in our global economy, but, you know, they're so critically important and we kind of depend on them every day. They also tend to be a little bit slower in terms of digital adoption and sort of technology adoption, if you will. But that's kind of the, you know, the high level of what we do. From a day-to-day, I think my role looks a lot like, you know, and Bruce, I'd be curious to also hear what it looks like for you, but on a day-to-day basis, I think I tend to do a lot of sort of deal sourcing, due diligence, you know, speaking to companies, speaking to founders about their ideas and about their businesses. That's incredibly inspiring to, you know, to be able to interact with, you know, people who are so passionate and so, you know, really changing, moving the needle. in this space. And so that's a really fun part of what I get to do every day. And on top of that, you know, I think the investor role is a lot of sort of thesis building. You know, we're also fundraising ourselves as a fund, so supporting the fundraising process and really sort of helping build an investment roadmap for where it makes sense to kind of deploy, you know, the capital going forward. There are so many opportunities out there, so sometimes it feels a little bit like you're boiling the universe and trying to figure out exactly where our attention and our dollars should be allocated right now. Yeah, that's a little bit about the day to day. Oh, I guess the other thing I'll add is that I think it's an incredibly network driven industry, and that is both good and bad. It has pros and cons. But I was involved early on with an organization called Future VC, and Diversity VC, which I'm happy to share more about later. But there's a lot of the job that's actually tied to network and community building, which is another piece that I really enjoy and I think is critical to you know, helping build the industrial economy that we need.
Awesome. Thank you both for sharing. And I think you both were starting to touch on this, but I wanted to ask why you both think climate resilience is important, and how you can get more people interested in climate. And I will add that I think when I look at my like day-to-day of being a transportation planner, you don't see a lot of the different moving pieces that go into working in like consulting and moving with agencies and whatnot. So something interesting that or I've had experience with is looking into emissions of buses and public transportation networks. So those are like some examples.
Shall I take this one first?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so absolutely. I think, you know, for me, part of the reason I kind of decided to do what I do now was really informed by experiences that I had early in my career in the oil and gas industry. I kind of always knew, even when I was back in college and early on, like climate was actually my end game, and I'm very sort of adamant about that. But I found it really, really important to kind of understand an industry before I changed, you know, wanted to change it all. So I think that one of the biggest realizations that I had during that time was that we actually have we're living in a time where there has been so much technological advancement, so many awesome scientific discoveries. Like, we actually have a lot of the tech that we need to bridge this gap and to kind of crack this nut, as I like to say. But it's so like nascent, and it's so early in its you know, kind of like on the maturity curve, that these technologies just aren't able to compete with like incumbent at the time it was energy sources, like at scale, and be accessible to populations around the world. So I think I realized that there was, again, this tech exists, but it's nascent, and it lives kind of like in the hearts and minds of like super smart scientists and engineers. And that's kind of like why for me at least, the focus on these early stage companies and really the startup ecosystem was, you know, I kind of felt that was the area to double down on and to index into. So that's why I kind of made the choice to be where I am, and being on the investment side, you know, because I actually was going to go work for a startup. That's actually when I quit my job cold turkey, I was like, I'm going to work for a startup. But I decided I couldn't really decide which specific technology I was like, I wanted to back yet. But going into the sort of investing space, if I could kind of go into the investing space and get the breadth, sort of the breadth of climate technologies and have some experience doing diligence on them, it might help inform where I wanted to sort of index into next. So that's where we are. That's why I chose it. Did I answer the question, Jerry?
Yeah.
Yes, I think you did. Yeah.
We'll give it to you. One of the things I really love about working in climate and in climate resilience is that it touches everything. When I started working even at Berkeley, originally on a climate readiness institute that we had a few years back, it was, I'd say, and this was 7 or 8 years ago, a somewhat narrower band of disciplines that were involved, but now it's almost every part of the campus, and that's exciting to me, and it's also exciting in terms of students going into this field. There are so many entry points here, so we're working with School of Public Health, we're working with the College of Engineering, we're of course working with Natural Resources College, we're working with a law school, we're working with our College of Environmental Design, we're working with College of Chemistry, we're working with our brand new data science, which is Berkeley's first new college that it's formed in 50 years. Last one was journalism 50 years ago, and now data science, because data science is so important to every part of the climate world. So that's been really exciting to me to see, and it fits my personality, because I have to know a little bit about a whole bunch of things, but I don't have to go too deep. So I mainly have to know who knows. My job is connecting people, which I love doing, and I've done it in different forms in my work life for decades now. But it's really exciting again to see all of these different parts of the academic world that I'm living in right now, but all these parts of the big world that we have here, private sector, nonprofits, community groups, all. Climate touches everything, and therefore we can get to it in a lot of interesting ways, depending upon what your interest is or your skills are. Jerry, you're on mute.
My bad. Yes, I agree. And I was asking if Ashi wanted to hop back in with that again. I wasn't sure if you were also talking.
Yeah, well, I was just going to echo that, Bruce. Like, I think you're, absolutely right that climate has so many facets, and it's embedded in everything that we do today. And it's going to take efforts from, it's going to take engineers and scientists, but it's also going to take teachers, and it's going to take everybody. It's going to take everybody to really be on the same page and kind of help reinvent the way that the world works. So yeah, I just wanted to echo that without getting too far ahead into Jerry's questions. I know you have.
If I could just add one example from Berkeley right now. 2 years ago, Berkeley decided to do a 5-person cluster hire in climate equity and environmental justice. So these were young faculty, younger, that were going to be in different departments, 5 different departments across the campus. Well, in 2 years, it's now 15 faculty. Because other departments wanted in and schools wanted in. So we now have this round table, as it's called, as opposed to just a faculty cluster approach. But climate equity goes through all of these issues that we're going to be talking about. Environmental justice goes through all of them. So again, going to be lots of interesting ways for people to jump in here and be part of this over the next decades.
Awesome, thank you. That goes into like quite a few questions that I was going to pose, so we can just keep going. Let's see. I think if we look, or if we're looking at, or we've talked about a lot of how interdisciplinary like climate resilience is, and what different careers could be. One question that we can go into more is like, what could a career path look like in climate resilience? And in the same breath, or as we're answering this question, do you all think that there are any specific sectors or industries that are particularly crucial for building climate resilience, or like what plays a very significant role in these like opportunities?
Well, I'll start. How about on this one, Ashi? I think my answer is all of the above. There are so many industries that are now involved, and sectors and need to be involved if they aren't already. I think I'd single out health as a really big one, an important one. I think the more we talk about climate in terms of health, and this would be both human health and health of ecosystems, all of that, I think it's a winner, and I think it's the truth, actually. Health is if you look at what just happened in New York last week and Vermont, if you look what's happening in China this past week with high heat, and they were actually issuing orders to employers to not have people work outside. I mean, this is the world we're in and coming to in a much bigger fashion. And a lot of it, I think, goes back to health of workers. And in that China example, workers, farm workers and construction workers and others who are outside. So I wouldn't try and rank them, because I think they're all going to be important. Engineering, vital, so many things. But I guess one other mention. Right now, we're focused a lot on science and technology and all. We need social sciences as well. We need to understand better why people do things and why they don't, and what kinds of things they will advocate for, how to be a leader. There are all sorts of things from the social world that I hope we can eventually, make as important as the actual science and technology and all. I'll stop there.
Yeah, Bruce, I think you're right. I have a lot of the same sentiments in that it's going to take, collaboration across all industries. It feels unfair to rank them. However, if I had to pick an area, or if I had to pick a couple of areas here and there, I think, I'm a little biased, but I think that the biomanufacturing sector is one that's going to need just a lot more talent than we currently have. It is sort of this burgeoning, we're discovering all these manufacturing capabilities that we didn't know that we had with natural systems, with the help of natural systems and biological systems. So it's an incredibly cool and exciting area, and one that's also been prioritized, at the federal level. And it's in a way, you can kind of see how these opportunity areas become important across the private sector, across, public. So just, with some of those forces like amalgamating at the same time, you're going to see maybe an increase in opportunity, like employment opportunities. You're going to see some of these companies in these industries just come across more funding, and as we see more interest in manufacturing products that way. I think the other thing I'll say is, like, it's hard to say what a full career in climate looks like. I'm very much figuring it out myself, as so many of us are. But I do believe one of my, I think, just opinions is that I do believe, as Bruce mentioned, like it's going to be in every industry, and it's going to take a workforce or a new generation of people who come at their day-to-day jobs with the mindset and the angle of climate resilience and emissions reduction. It's going to take all of the, whether you're a software engineer or a process engineer, or whether you're an accountant, it's going to have to be like embedded into like the mindset across, of everyone. And I think a focus on, again, like our productive industries, the ones that supply like material goods, is where I see the most opportunity being, for that workforce to have like maximal impact, so that we can begin to curb emissions in the sectors that provide our basic needs, and needs that we know are only growing as population increases, as more people kind of gain access to wealth and purchasing power. Their material needs just grow. So we can't really think about producing less. We have to think about producing more, but we have to find a way to do that, with fewer emissions. And a lot of those jobs maybe have the same titles that they carry today. They have a new angle. I think we have to come at them with a new angle, and that's the one of climate impact.
And I think, just to add one more on this, I think we can't tell where this is going. I mean, we should be careful here, that just because we have good ideas about where we are now and where it's going, the climate world is so new in many ways, and expanding in, as we've said, into so many different industries and all, so many academic disciplines. I would suggest that people follow their heart about and their intuition about what they want to be working on, and climate will be there somewhere, and who knows. Again, we have a huge innovation genomics institute here, headed up by Jennifer Doudna, the CRISPR Nobel Prize winner, and they're doing a whole lot now on climate and sustainable agriculture. Well, that wasn't in anyone's plan probably 10 years ago, but it's become one of the biggest things that we're doing now at Berkeley on climate.
Awesome. Thank you all both for sharing. I will say, just to the students for our Q&A, I will open up the floor in like 10-ish minutes, probably a little bit sooner than that. But this week, if you want to ask or participate in Q&A and ask the question yourself, make sure you use the raise hand feature. And if you would rather me ask it, then just direct message me, and I will make sure or try our best to get to all of them. So yes, for our next question, this is from a student as well. What schools from school education carried on to be essential now? And what skills did you learn outside of school or after school? And Ashi, would you like to go first for this one?
Sure, I'll start. So, the skills, the first part was the skills that you learned in school that you use the most. Is that?
Yeah, that you consider to be essential.
Yeah, okay. So, I think this is coming from the perspective of like, engineering undergrad. So take that, keep that in mind. I think the most essential skills that I kind of learned in that, in that sort of major was just like the value of like hard work and that sort of the grind, if you will. You learn how to really continue like working at a goal, studying for an exam, like balancing like a really intense schedule, You learn, I think learning like that grit and that ability to kind of multitask was really critical. And also just having exposure to, you know, those situations where you're like failing and you're like failing again and you're like failing and failing. And you're not really failing, okay, you're beating the curve, but still, you know, when you get a paper back and it's like 40% and you got an A, like it puts you in the mindset of just having some resilience and being used to that. Because I think in the, you know, as we come into the real world and begin our professional careers, you know, there's a lot of situations and times when things don't necessarily go your way. And it's funny, it's like a little micro lesson that I look back on and I'm like, okay, like it was good that you kind of experienced those failures. I also think that another essential one was like, you know, we have, I think sometimes in school we have these like you know, you have your coursework and then you also have like the projects that you do that, you know, sometimes they'll throw you in teams and then they'll make you do like a real world project. It's funny how in the moment those can be such a drag. You're like, oh, another group project. But they are really the actual real world applications that you bring your, you know, your theoretical knowledge base to. And even though the projects are theoretical, I think that they presented some of the most interesting examples or tidbits as you think about applying your skills to the real world. So those are two really critical. More like soft skills, of course, there's like the sort of like the biochem, which I tend to use a lot, and like the, you know, electrochemistry here and there. But after school, I had to do a pretty significant learning curve and learn just about the industry. So learning about the industry that you're operating in is like super critical, but that's where your ability to be curious and ask questions and understand complex systems, which is again a great thing that you learn in a STEM education, really comes in handy there. But you know, having sort of that business industry knowledge or cultivating that over time. And for me, I had to go back, and after I came into an investor role, and you know, even before, just learn the basics of learn more about finance and learn more about things from the lens of an investor. So definitely had to take some coursework and learn accounting and learn some of these new subject areas for me, which I kind of did on myself and with the help of courses.
I think, well, it's obviously been quite a while since I've been a student, so I'll have to talk from the point of view of what I see on campus. And what I see is it's going to be really important for people to be able to work well with others. Now, that sounds, you know, obvious, but I think it's so important with the climate work. Yes, we need some brilliant individuals who will sit up late at night in their lab by themselves and have some fabulous breakthrough that'll help us. And we need those people. But we also are going to need, I think, more people who are good at working across disciplines and across silos. An example is, I mentioned we have a new data science college at Berkeley, but those scientists and data experts it's going to be co-led by someone. There's actually an institute within that college that's going to be co-led by a chemist and a data scientist. And you know, these are not people that in the past were working together. You would have the chemists working on things, the data science people maybe working on things. They're going to this new institute is called BidMap, and it's going to be this fabulous new well-funded thing that again is going to bring data scientists together with climate scientists to solve big data problems in the climate world. And that's going to take, you know, language, it's going to take listening, it's going to take a lot of skills that we all don't have enough of usually on how do we collaborate in an effective way. Because collaboration doesn't mean you just play nice, it means you get something done in a way that's really helpful for the big world. We're doing something this fall that I'm excited about, where the 5th National Climate Assessment is coming out, and it's all science and all about what's going on in the country. And there's also a poetry anthology that's been funded to go with the National Climate Assessment. So this was a new one for me. So we're going to actually do an event where we have poets and scientists talking about the climate assessment and climate poetry that they've written for this anthology. And I'm excited about it because we'll get different people in the room. And it won't be, you won't know what to expect. And it may fail or it may work really well, but it'll be exciting. And we need some of that.
Yeah, I think so. I think that'll be a really fun experience, actually. Yeah. So I think we could go ahead and open up for student Q&A. And so we can start with Lisa, and then I received another question after that, so I think we'll be pretty good. But just to reiterate, for students, make sure that if you would like to ask your question over Zoom, use the raise hand feature, and I'll try to make sure I go through in order. And then if you would not like to ask it yourself, and I can ask it for you, just direct message me, and then that will be good.
Yeah. So my question is for Ashi. So what advice would you give to individuals or organizations looking to integrate climate resilience into their work or their operations? And how can they effectively incorporate climate considerations to address those climate-related risks?
Good question, Lisa. I think so. If we're talking about, corporations, again, I have a kind of a little bit of a specific and biased view here, but when we talk about corporations, I think it's all about understanding how to decarbonize your current operations while sort of maximizing productivity. I think in this space, what we've seen a lot is, there's been various, innovation, there are various innovation budgets and funds that are kind of like allocated for these types of activities. When I worked in industry, I was on sort of the corporate side of that. Now working at a venture firm, I'm on a little bit of the other side of it, where, we're introducing startups and making those connections there. But I think some of these insights or this sort of guidance comes from operating and working in a team that was advancing a corporate innovation, project. It's really to kind of have the buy-in at all organizational levels. When you're in a massive machine or an oil and gas company, like ExxonMobil, there are just inherently so many layers to an organization, and it can be quite difficult to, get even the best and most exciting projects out, and ones that will help sort of decarbonize operations or improve your even improve productivity in some cases, but without sort of the buy-in at every level, and without sort of clear objectives and goals set from the top, it's difficult. So one, that depends on just the strategic objectives of the company, but also what we can do, it goes back to kind of what Bruce was saying, is that just be able to work well with people and collaborate with them, be able to get the buy-in of the people that you need. And that comes from, being an exceptional sort of team operator, and, someone who can kind of make your way through organizational layers and working with teams that maybe are a little bit different than you, and people who are a little bit different than you.
Awesome. Thank you for that answer. Another question for Ashi. This is a question from Bethany for how did your internships impact you, and more so like details on the influence that had on your career path, or like the pivot in your career path.
The internships, yeah. So I had two internships. The first internship was with ExxonMobil. This had a really, really profound impact on me, like super profound. I kind of went in there as this like starry-eyed environmentalist, ready to like come in punching. And it was so informative because taking a summer to work with this corporation just made me aware of how much I did not know about, one of our most essential commodities, which, we don't want to admit it, but it's literally touching everything that probably touching everything that everything we're touching is sort of derived from a barrel of crude. So I think it really helped me understand just one, how small I was and how narrow my understanding of this industry was, and made me realize that there's kind of like a right way to make the global energy and climate transition that we need, and then there's like maybe a wrong way to do it that marginalizes more people than it kind of helps. So I think I became very, very aware of the need to engage these big incumbent players who sometimes we can view as the enemy or view in a negative light. And, not to say they have their fair share of, challenges, but it made me realize that we need to work in tandem with them, because this is where maximum value is sort of concentrated. A lot of purchasing power and everything is there. So I realized that I needed to learn a little bit more before I was ready to make the climate impact that I wanted. So I decided to sign on with them full time and stayed there for about 4 or 5 years.
Awesome. Thank
I think one thing just to add there that we've probably said, but say it again, that it's good to get out and do things. School is great. School can be very helpful for not only knowledge, but networking and a lot of time to kind of think things through. But I think get out and join a group, get an internship, get something going, and you'll learn a lot, and you'll learn more about what you're interested in, but you'll also be seen. I think it's always been the best way to, get your foot in the door somewhere, even if it's just for the summer, and people see you. And if you're good and you apply yourself in a strong way, that could lead to all sorts of doors opening. And for you to also understand better what it is that you might want to do, like Ashi was just saying.
For sure. We can go to Joanne next.
Okay, so I have a question for Bruce, and this is a student question. So how does the Berkeley Climate Change Network facilitate interdisciplinary projects and collaboration among researchers? And what are the range of disciplines that you work with?
We're working with, as I said, really quite the range now. I work a lot with a law school. I work with the College of Environmental Design, with the engineering school. I work pretty much, some more than others, but across the campus. The couple of ways, collaboration is wonderful. We all talk about it and we all want people to do it more, but money is really important for collaboration. There has to be, collaboration has to make it easier to do what you want to do, or to help you do what you would like to do. I mean, collaboration can't get in the way. If it gets in the way, it's just too much trouble, and you'll go back to doing things, maybe the way you did. So what we try to connect people around are funding opportunities. So we've had a couple here at the state level recently in California that we're working on. So we've made it easier for people to meet each other. We're going to try some speed teaming stuff in the kind of a technique using Zoom a little bit, but for now, kind of low tech. We find out who's interested in a certain funding opportunity, and then we give them a chance to meet each other, talk with each other, see where collaboration might be helpful for. But it's really where money is so important for this, because that's what drives, money for grad students is a lot of what drives faculty and research. And so we've been very, I guess, careful to try to structure what we do around providing real help for researchers. If again, we're just another thing on their to-do list, it's not gonna fly. But if we can find something that they need help with, like, okay, I want to find who else is working on climate and migration, which is a big topic right now we're working on. Great, I can do that. I can take a couple of days where they can't. And I did this just now for our Vice Chancellor of Research and came back with about 20 different people that were working on some part of migration and climate. So it saved them time, and it's going to give them hopefully some people that will be good partners for them. And then when we go to funders now, we know a lot more about how we could put a team together. We're not just yakking about, yeah, we can put a team, Berkeley can do everything. We can say, we have this, we have this, we have this, we have this, because we've done that kind of homework. So I guess those are some of the ways that we're trying to link people. And I hate to say it's all about money, because it's not, but money is really driving a lot of why people come together.
Thank you. We'll get our next question from Maritza.
Hello. So yeah, I had a question for Bruce as well. So I did want to ask, in your experience on consulting on climate change strategies for various organizations in the Bay Area, what are some effective approaches or actions that could enhance climate resilience at the local level?
At the local level?
Yes.
Well, I've worked a lot with cities here, and cities is where a lot of this work started, 15, even close to 20 years ago, when certainly our federal government wasn't taking on climate, and not in the way that they are now. Cities, ICLEI was the organization that first brought cities together around sustainability and climate issues starting many years ago. There's so many things that can be done with building codes, with transportation. There's so many areas in which cities can have a big effect. Cities can also band together to go to states and go to the feds and advocate for things that they need to make things work. Cities can come up with funding incentives, which are so important to getting companies and individuals and groups to take on some of the strategies we want them to take on. Local governments, I think, one more, are positioned well, usually, not always, to this may be out of date at this point, but I would say they're trusted in many communities. At least they used to be. There's a lot of fighting now, I think, at the local level over lots of issues, unfortunately, that we see. And frankly, it's going to happen around climate. We've just had other issues that have taken the front row for local fights. But local communities can communicate with their residents easily, so that's a great role that they can play. They can put in, again, incentives and strategies to get individuals doing things, which is important here. It's not the whole thing. Policy is really what we need at the federal and state levels to really make the big changes, but locals can do a lot of the implementation. Hope that helps.
Awesome. Thank you. So let's see, with time left. Okay, so we'll do one more question for Ashi that I got from the student, and then we're going to end on like a rapid fire question. Yeah. So for Ashi, in your experience, what are some of the main challenges faced by entrepreneurs and innovators working on climate resilient solutions? And do climate entrepreneurs have unique challenges, and how are these challenges, or how can these challenges be overcome?
Yeah, great question. I think one of the big challenges, I'll keep it brief, but one of the big challenges that comes to mind, and I've observed in my time, is that in physical industries, these are extremely complex industries that have really integrated supply chains. And material inputs are a really, really important part of any sort of manufacturing process, whether it's for fertilizer, whether it's for, steel or whatever it is. But I think that when you have an early stage company, sometimes there are sort of input needs that already have these like sort of existing pockets of demand that are maybe higher value. And it can be really difficult for new entities to kind of like break into these value chains that are already existing, and it can be difficult to kind of become part of that value chain and receive favorable pricing. You're talking about sort of creating products that have favorable unit economics, and it can be challenging to source and keep material costs like sort of on hand when you're a new sort of player on the block, and the good that you're after already has a really long-standing established customer base, and high value applications that are like demanding its demanding in other places. So I'll leave it at that. It's something that I see particularly in the sort of in industrial and physical ecosystem with respect to venture capital.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your answer. Okay, so rapid fire, since we have 2 minutes and we don't want to take up too much more of everyone's time. So we've been talking a lot about interdisciplinary work and collaboration, communication, and this is something that has been talked about this week a lot at RePicture. So if you have a word or a phrase that in your experience, I guess, what are some key factors that contribute to high performing like teamwork or teams, and how you may ensure effective communication, collaboration, or whatnot with teams. And Bruce, you can go first if you'd like.
Quickly, I think asking the question, how can I help you? How can I be of service to you? I think that's not the only question, but I can go a long ways towards building good teams. Was that quick enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll be quick on my follow too. I'll say lead with empathy and lead with curiosity are two sort of really effective collaboration strategies.
Awesome. And then last but not least, if you could tell yourself one thing or give yourself one piece of advice at the beginning of your career, what would it be? And it'll be the same style of answering.
I think get good at identifying good opportunities and jump on them. I look back and see a few that I missed them, but I think with this one, being aware of them and then jumping when they're there.
I'll say mine, I know we're at time, but I'll say mine is, if we talk about if the career path isn't necessarily a straight line, what does it actually look like? Well, it looks kind of like this, right? At every bend and twist and turn and corner that you take, be present and intentional about understanding how it ties back to the ultimate goal. Enjoy the detours that it actually takes, because they're really important, just as important to the end goal. Yeah.
Excellent.
Awesome. Then thank you so much, Ashi and Bruce, for joining us today and sharing so much wisdom. It's been awesome hearing about both of your careers, both current and past, and I really appreciate having been on this panel with you all.
Yes.
Thanks, Jerry.
Yes, and thank you, Jerry, for leading our Q&A again. And yes, again, thank you so much, Bruce and Ashi, for coming and being with us today. I look forward to continuing to being in touch. And you shared so many great insights and with so much great wisdom today that not only, again, like our students here today can learn from, but all students will have access to. So thank you.
Can I just say one quick thing?
Yes.
We need you. We need all of you
Yes.
students. And if anybody wants to talk to me one-on-one, I'm happy to do that because you
Oh.
are, so important to what's going to be happening. If you want to give out my email, that's just fine. Okay.
Oh, that is an amazing offer, everybody. So you heard it. Definitely reach out to Bruce. And I know a lot of you are interested in climate. So this is about basically an amazing opportunity for you. Thank
Yeah,
you
and
so much.
I'm just putting my email in the chat, guys. The same goes here, or connect on LinkedIn. If you're on
Yes.
New York, I'd love to link as well.
Yes, and you know who to talk to if you're thinking of starting a climate related startup. Okay, you all have a connection now. So yes.
Yes, this is where we need our minds in this space.
Yes.
Yeah, we need you.
We really do. So thank you for
Thank you so much. All right, take care.
Okay.